We want freedom. We are going to get it.
25 years ago, something remarkable happened in South Africa. Nelson Mandela's election as the country's first black president marked the end of apartheid.
It is a time of saying, hey, freedom is coming! Freedom is coming!
Almost half of South Africans are part of the born-free generation. The term is used to describe those who never experienced the legally enforced racism of apartheid, which ended with free elections in 1994.
I believe in the term born free. I'm not held back from what I can do and what I want to achieve within society. But there's still a long way to go.
I am not born free. I am born chained.
I think that born-free identity is part of some kind of marketing scheme by Brand South Africa to lull us into a false sense of unity.
I guess I'm classified as a born-free, but I don't see myself as a born-free. It wasn't really for people of my race. You had to fight to get this country to move forward from apartheid to be classified as a born-free.
Mandela remains an enduring global icon for peace. But many of South Africa's born free feel conflicted about his legacy.
My experiences was very tough growing up. Hout Bay is one of the most segregated places. We have the blacks, the whites and the coloureds. There's a lot of poverty. My father was in prison on Robben Island with Nelson Mandela.
When he came to power, Mandela presided over what many called the Rainbow Nation, where all could live in harmony no matter what their race.
Nelson Mandela's legacy was all about bringing peace to communities. But the work is not done. It's still in process.
And now all we talk about is the legacy of Mandela. We're taught about him as a hero who emerges as the victor, slaying the apartheid giant. But that is not what happened. It's not what happened. He compromised.
I'm a theatre maker, an art maker. I am maybe an activist.
The nature of the struggle that the older generation, our parents, faced was vastly different to ours. But we are not lucky. We are in pain. If they just listen and they just look, they will realize that very little has changed just because I cannot live with a white person.
You know, I don't really think about apartheid too much. I had a very fortunate upbringing. My parents were in a scenario where I could go to one of the best private schools in the country. Post 1994, I think my parents were obviously very hopeful, but there was a fear about how the country was going to go from this point onward.
Mandela made a raft of pledges in his maiden speech as president, which would go on to form the backbone of South Africa's new constitution.
This is one of the most important moments in the life of our country.
Our greatest responsibility after the election will be to turn the suffering country into a prosperous, peaceful and democratic society.
This means creating jobs, building houses, providing education, and bringing peace and security for all.
Our country.
The promises of 1994 have not been kept. For example, economic justice, it did not happen. It's a lot more difficult to keep a promise to free people economically if you have invested in keeping the economic power in the same place that it was during apartheid, which is with the white business owners, the white landowners. This is part of the agreements that were made.
South Africa's levels of inequality are among the highest in the world. The richest 10% own between 90 and 95% of all wealth.
A lot has changed since apartheid. There's a lot of stuff in place to improve inequality.
The government has lots of policies that favour black people in admission to universities, hiring in the workplace, and even share ownership.
It's an incentive for companies to hire black people, coloured people.
Some of this falls under the slogan of Black Economic Empowerment, otherwise known as BEE.
There is a certain anxiety that a few people have that the VE is just going to disadvantage them because they're not being looked at for certain roles or jobs or positions because of their race. I don't really know how true that is.
Whether it's that broad-based black economic empowerment or affirmative action, what it kind of turned out to be is that it only empowered the already existing black elite.
An ANC government will guarantee victims of forced removal restitution. This was one of the promises that was made in 1994. The government failed.
During apartheid, over 3.5 million black and mixed-race South Africans were forcibly removed from their homes and placed in segregated neighbourhoods in what was one of the largest mass evictions in modern history.
My parents and grandparents were evicted from the land and thrown on another site. The government has tried to give some of the land back to the rightful owners. It was never enough. When I was 18 years old, I had the right to apply for a house. I had to go on the waiting list and my number was 573,000.
The current waiting list for a state-subsidised home in Cape Town is 60 years.
We are fighting for free decolonized education now. Not in our lifetime, but now.
Many of the youth is like striking at universities because the education system actually failed to deliver.
In South Africa, 80% of children aged 9 to 10 cannot read and understand a simple sentence. Public spending on education is high, but many teachers are incompetent or don't show up to work.
In 2015, fees must fall happens. It's mass actions about free education. It's one of the things that were promised, which was not given, and they've promised it again and are not giving it.
Kondiswa now leads protests against university tuition fees.
So we do shutdowns. A group of us get arrested. At some point we really feared, it felt like, for our lives and our safety.
There's anger and unrest on the streets beyond universities too.
Police brutality is playing a massive role within the underprivileged communities. And they would just come in and start shooting. And there was a 14-year-old boy that was shot in the mouth.
Is anyone helping this guy?
I captured that on camera.
Jesus Christ, he needs fucking medical attention.
The ANC, the party which Nelson Mandela led to power, has ruled for 25 years. Widespread corruption, especially under former President Jacob Zuma, has stalled economic growth, sent public debt soaring, and increased unemployment.
For a lot of people, if I speak honestly, there isn't a massive amount of faith in, the people running the country, the government at this point.
Our task as young people is to find ways to implement our potential.
Recent polls reveal that only 14% of South Africans have faith in the government. The country's leaders face a daunting task in winning back their confidence.
My hope for the future is that everyone should be treated equally. But the grassroots is where the healing needs to take place.